There is blind justice, and then there is trading justice, so that you can finally afford to get that laser eye surgery. Not only will people find you more attractive once you ditch those old glasses, you'll be able to see your charts better. That's what we call win-win. Speaking of winning, it's time for a little trading justice. Brought to you by TackleTrading.com.
Okay, welcome friends, welcome team. Glad out there in podcast land you decided to turn on the Trading Justice podcast. My name is Tim Justice, Coach T from TackleTrading.com, here to have a conversation. We've got a very special guest tonight, and his name is Greg Holmes. Greg, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Looking forward to talking to you tonight. Pretty excited to reach all the Tackle Trading listeners out there.
I am very excited to have you on the podcast. I met Greg, I believe it was either in April, March, somewhere in the spring. When did you come out here to Utah, Greg?
Yeah, I believe it was, actually I think it was May, wasn't it? A little later in May?
Yeah.
Maybe in,
We're getting old.
Honestly can't remember. It's been a while. So.
We're getting old. I met you, Greg came out to my office in 2015. Early, either in the spring or the early summer, and he got a chance to sit with me for mentoring for 3 days. And it was a really great 3 days, just not only from my side of it, doing the teaching and the leading and everything, but also just getting to know you, Greg. I really enjoyed it. And since then, I mean, Greg and I have been talking, quite a bit, helping him develop some of his educational design, some of the things that he wants to do, taking the strategies that Greg has been using for years and years and years and turning it into some kind of class that you're going to teach at some point. And that's been quite the process. We're going to get into all those things as we go. But first thing I want to do, Greg, is kind of just talk to you a little bit about your background. You live in Ontario, correct?
Yeah, Ontario, Canada. Yep, a little small town out of the way, about 3.5 hours south of Toronto. So right near the U.S. border, actually.
How far from London are you? London, Ontario.
Yeah, I'm an hour south of that.
Hour south of London. Okay, good. Interesting. Yeah. I saw London as I was flying from Detroit to New York, so I thought of you. I'm probably flying right over Greg right now. Yeah.
Anyway. Real close.
Well, one thing I want to talk to you about a little bit is your background here. You've been a trader and around markets for quite some time. You had retirement accounts. You got into active trading. Why don't you kind of walk everybody out there through some of that background? How did you get involved in trading, investing? When, what? I mean, give us some of your history here.
Okay. Well, it's an odd story, really. I don't think it's the usual channel to get to the trading that I'm doing and the trading that I love. I was an electrician by trade. I worked in the electrical industry for 20 years. And funny enough, I met a fellow. I actually had a friend of mine who got involved with a financial firm. And, I'd always had an interest, even as a kid, I had an interest in finance and Wall Street and, all that kind of stuff, and I never really did anything much with it. But a buddy of mine had come and he had joined this company and he told me all these fantastic things and all these different strategies on how to invest and do all this kind of stuff. And, I don't know why, but I gravitated towards it. And so I took a bit of an interest in that, and I spent some time studying, and I got a couple financial licenses, and I worked in the mutual fund industry for a while, and I could have left it at that. I could have stopped, once I'd learned, kind of about the mutual funds and how they work. But as I started going forward, I kept reading and kept taking classes and kept learning more, and I realized that there were better ways to do things. And fast forward 4, 5, 6 years, and lots of training and lots of mentoring, and I came to the realization that I was able to help myself and help the people I know better through trading than I ever could selling them mutual funds or insurance or what I originally started out with. So it's a bit of a leap, I think, to get from a tradesperson to a full-time trader. but I'll tell you, it's been the most rewarding experience I've ever had, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, no pun intended. So that's just a little bit about how I got to this point, Tim.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey, and quite frankly, a lot of my clients have similar backgrounds. You know, small business owners, or they work for a corporation or a company, or they might work for the state. I was just on the phone with a guy who works for the county. He's a corrections officer, and so I mean, I work with a lot of people in that either come from a blue collar background or a white collar background, but either way, they need to get control of their financial future, and that's where you found yourself. So when did you go from the leave it in the retirement account to making your first trade? When was the first time you started doing, say, like a covered call or something like that?
Well, I've been trading. I guess it's over 5 years now. I had my retirement accounts. I had my money. I had a tough experience, I guess. Before I became a financial advisor myself. I put some money with the fella, and same old story. I went to somebody I trusted and asked them what I should do with my money, and I gave it to a person, and vis-a-vis a few years later, it was mostly gone. So I kind of picked up myself and decided that I better learn something. And so it's been about 5 years now since I made my first trade. My first trade was interesting. It was around 2007, 2008 when I really started looking at things, and when I really started trading. I guess it'd probably be about 6 years ago that I started trading, because it was right around 2008, end of 2008, just before the market crash when I started trading. So yeah, it was an interesting time. It was a trial by fire, having that huge correction, crash, whatever you want to call it. And that happened shortly after I got into trading. So I learned some valuable lessons really fast. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's interesting because I know a lot of people who started into markets after the financial markets crash. And there's nothing like watching the market drop 60% to motivate you to become educated, is there? It's pretty startling when you see it happen right up close and personal.
Yeah, it was a real eye opener. Now, fortunately, I had read some. I'd taken an interest before all that happened, and it actually worked out quite well for me. I had a strategy that I used first, and it wasn't the smartest strategy I've ever used, but as it turned out, that 40-50% market correction actually helped me out a great deal. It didn't feel like that at the time. It actually felt like the world was coming to an end, so to speak. But I stuck with the original strategy I had, and it did okay for me. I pulled out of it, but it did spur me on to learn more and to try new things, and I got some help along the way, from folks like yourself, and it's been an incredible journey, and it's something I try to share with everybody I meet, because I think it's something we all need. It's amazing. Every day I talk to somebody new who's super frustrated with the lack of control that they have over their own money. And, every day I tell them my story. I espouse my story and say, look, I've been there. I've taken the real beating. And, you just wake up one day and you decide, hey, today's the day I'm going to do something about it. So that's kind of where I find myself now.
One thing that impressed me about you early on, and you made an impression on me, that you're a natural communicator. Is that just always that you've always just been a good bullshitter with your buddies, or do you have like an innate skill here? Like, where did that come from? Because you naturally just want to talk to people, you want to help people. I remember in Salt Lake, I mean, you'd talk to somebody at the gas station or at lunch or whatever. I'm kind of like that myself, but I'm interested. Have you always been like that, or is it something you learned as an adult?
I don't know. I've always been social. You know what I mean? And I like people, I like all kinds of people, and I love to chat, what I mean, and especially if you find some common ground, like somebody wants to talk markets, I'll talk their ear off all day long. because it's what I'm passionate about. But I find people interesting, and so I think when you find people interesting, I think it tends to lend to a bit more conversation than if if you're less outgoing. Myself, I don't see myself as a great communicator. I just like people. I like to talk to people, see what they're all about, see what makes them tick. See if I can help them in one way. Because as I said earlier, I've had some help along the way in my journey. I've had some people that have really pushed me forward, and I feel that everybody should have that shot. And I think it's time. It's time in my career, my trading career, and my life. I think it's time for me to give that back to people. And so, hey, anybody who wants to listen, I'm more than happy to talk to them. So.
I understand 100%, and I know this for a fact because I know what it takes to be good at this stuff. You're going to be a great mentor, Greg, and you're going to have the opportunity to help people. And getting to know you, I know that is something that really motivates you, and I know you're going to do great at it. Mentorships are an interesting deal. There are different hats you have to wear. Sometimes you got to be firm. You've got to give them direction. Sometimes you got to kick them in the ass and say, as long as you're doing it with the right attitude, I think people appreciate that. If somebody's not getting their homework done or they're not putting the work in, I mean, sometimes you got to have that heart to heart and say, hey, what's your motivation here? Because I'm not seeing it. Other times, and a lot of times with students, you got so much ambition and energy, they want to take everything on the world on, and you got to almost narrow their focus. So a lot of the tricks to teaching and mentoring, you'll learn as you go, but I hope that you understand if you ever need any direction there. I mean, I've done that a lot over the course of the last 10 years, so I'd be happy to help you. And that's actually one thing that you got to see up close and personal is me doing a mentorship. I don't know if I've asked you too much about this. We had the one conversation about it, but why don't you explain to everybody out there how that went and what you thought of all that? I might be setting myself up here.
Well, it was a unique experience. It was fantastic. The couple that we were helping out that weekend, just great people, really highly motivated. As you said, they were highly motivated people. Really, they wanted to learn, and they were ready to put in the work. Watching you work was impressive. Times where I would have wanted to rush in and, kind of give the answers to them just because I know the answers or some of the answers to some of the questions. You kind of held me back a little bit and said, hey, let them learn, let them struggle on their own. It'll reinforce the lesson. And I think that's one of the biggest things I took from that weekend. That 3 days was, you do gotta, sometimes, as a mentor coach, sometimes you gotta push, sometimes you gotta pull back, sometimes you just gotta pick them up, sometimes you gotta show them the path, it's an interesting thing. And, when I spent that 3 days with you, it was just a huge eye-opener for me. I always found that I could teach people, a few things, but I didn't even realize, I think, until I was with you for that 3 days that I was maybe giving them too much. It's a fine line to walk as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I took away from that 3 days. And like I said, meeting the couple that we worked with, they were fantastic people. I had a great time, interacting with them and yourself, and getting to know you and just watching your work was a real pleasure. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I got to tell you, I've had other mentors make comments to me like, Tim, I don't know how it is you teach the way you teach, and quite frankly, Greg, it's just my natural instincts that I use all the time, and I'm sure I don't always make the best decisions on that every time, but I know I have my heart in the right place. And I think one of the very first things, if you're going to be a teacher of anything, mentor somebody in stock, teach people how to get control of their financial future, motivate people to get back into better shape, or connect with their spirituality or whatever it is. Have a passion for it. Have a passion for helping. If you don't, you're probably not going to be a great teacher at those things. Now, I know you have a passion for markets. There's no question about it. I've seen it. We've talked about it. You love this stuff. But one thing that you're going to encounter, and this can be a challenge, and this is where I did a video on tackle trading a couple of weeks ago. It's called Start With Why. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that. If you're out there listening, go look that up. It's on the video blog at Tackle Trading. And sometimes, Greg, you're going to get a student in your office that really doesn't have a passion for trading, but they either one of two things. They have money that they have to learn how to protect because they have a passion for being in control, right? They don't want to be a victim to the market crashing or something like that. Or they just have, a strong desire to leave whatever career they're in, and they're looking for anything. And so learning to connect with those people can be a little bit of a challenge if they don't really have a passion for trading. Let me ask you, have you encountered anybody like that? You probably have, that maybe they're interested in the markets, but they don't really love it, but they know they need to learn something more about it?
Yeah. I actually, it's funny, I see there's two types of people that I encounter. There's the people that know they need to do something, and just, I don't know whether they're afraid or they just can't be bothered, and they just kind of let it go. You know what I mean? And then there's those other people that know they need to do something, but they don't know how, or they don't know where to start, or they don't have the same passion that I do. Now, for me, teaching people and helping people, I try and instill a little bit of that passion. But the reality is I know even here at home, some of my friends and family, they don't want to do what I do, and I understand that. And I think a good mentor, a good teacher can recognize that. So I think at that point, you gotta figure out what it is exactly that they want, and you may have to help them figure that out as well. But once you figure that out, just push them in the right direction, and they'll go as far as they need to go. And with your assistance, they'll get there. But I think you're right in the fact that they've got to kind of figure out what they truly want. And, if it's not if they don't have a passion for the markets like myself, or, whatever, there's something that drew you to them, or drew them to you, sorry. And whatever that is, you've got to work with them to bring that out, and they'll find their own way. Because, of all the traders I've met, I've never met two the same. You know what I mean? Like, we all do different things, and we all get great results. And I think you just got to help them find their own way. It's like being in a forest. You know what I mean? And you see a fork in the road. You know what I mean? If you've got somebody to say, hey, if you go this way, this will happen. If you go that way, this will happen. That's better than just choosing A or B, right? So that's kind of what I encounter with the people that I talk to. I think that's good
advice for everybody out there. I don't care what you do. You might be a budding trader. You might be a brand new investor. You might not be somebody who trades at all, but just wants to make better decisions about your 401k. You might just be riding in the car with somebody who's making you listen to the Trading Justice podcast, and so you're feeling like a victim right now because you'd rather listen to like Howard Stern or something. Don't matter what it is, but the reality is, Greg, I really believe this in my life, is that every situation is a gift. And if you can't find a way to be present, that's something I tell myself all the time, be present. You have a chance to have an opportunity, and you have an opportunity every time you have a conversation, every time you're sitting in a class, every time you're listening to a podcast, or you're engaging with one of your clients, or whatever it is, reading a book. Be present, be there. Try to get whatever it is out of that moment that you can get out of it. It's because I think that you've probably done this, we've all done it, where you get distracted and you're doing like 8 things at one time and you're not doing any of them very well. I think if you're going to decide that this is how I'm going to spend my hour, decide to make that a great hour. And the reality is what you said is 100% right. When somebody shows up to my class, they came there for a reason. Now, they may not even be able to tell me the reason for sure. Something compelled them or motivated them or got them there, and it's my job to do the best job I can to respect their time. And that's something my dad taught me from a very young age, just the nature of be present, be there, be focused. So it might come from team sports now that I think about it, because I remember playing second base or center field. If you're wandering eyes, Dad would yell at you from the dugout. You know, it's funny. You played a lot of team sports. In fact, you played rugby. You would tell me that internationally you would travel for rugby. What lessons from that, being involved with sports and all that, do you think applies to trading?
Well, that's probably the easiest question I've ever been asked. Because all sports, it doesn't matter which one you pick, any sport in the world takes discipline, right? And if you got discipline, if you've got the discipline to, show up to practice, work out, build your skills, do all those things, you'll do really well in sports. And the reality is trading is exactly like that. If you've got the discipline to study the charts, look into the strategies, get the help, practice, put the paper trades on. If you've got the discipline to do that, if you've got the discipline to follow your own system, day in and day out, make tweaks to that system. If you've got that discipline to do that, you can succeed in trading, no question about it. If you lack that discipline, then you definitely need to work on it. And I'll tell you, man, what I learned in rugby is, it's a team game, which trading and investing are a team game as well. And, the more disciplined and the more focused that my rugby team and myself included, the better off we did, the more we won, the more successful we were. It just all falls back to discipline as far as I'm concerned. That's the number one thing. And you don't have to have it right away, but you have to build it for yourself. And you can get help from your mentors, and you can get help from your trading communities. You can get help from listening to podcasts, all that kind of thing. But ultimately, you have to build the discipline to be a great trader or a great sports person. You look at right now the U.S. Open is on. You know what I mean? And I was just in New York City a couple of weeks ago, or last week, to watch the pros practice, and the discipline that those people exude is just incredible. And I think that's what it takes in trading as well to be successful.
I love it. Very, very true. Great advice. We're talking to Greg Holmes here today on the Trading Justice podcast. Greg is a trader, a mentor, a teacher, going to be out and doing some speaking, I think, as well at some point here, Greg, internationally or even here in the States. And Greg is a trader, at his core. Greg, you trade a very specific type of system or structure or theory. Why don't you explain how you approach trading out there to the audience?
Okay. I do all sorts of trading, but, the way I started, the way that I still continue to this day is, something that I've noticed recently with the markets pulling back. A lot of people are worried about protection. They got a lot of, there's fear out there. People are concerned that, the gravy train is done, so to speak. We've had a 6-7 year bull market, and things are starting to turn around now, and they're worried about it. And, for myself, I always thought of a defense-first attitude. And so the way I trade is, I look at the defense first, and I look at how I can protect myself in times of trouble. And the more protection I get, the more comfortable I can get, so that I can go after, decent returns. I trade a strategy where, I use several forms of protection. From picking the right equity, there's protection in that. From timing the entries, there's protection in that. From buying insurance against catastrophic events, there's 3 levels of protection in just the one thing I do. And then I use one simple strategy, to increase my returns to a reasonable level, to, what some would call an extraordinary level. Here in Canada, we have these banknotes, we call them GICs here in Canada. And right now, if you've got $500,000, you might be able to get 2%. The funny thing is if the bank, it's crazy, isn't it? But if the bank goes belly up, your only protection is about $60,000, which is from our government. So that would be a heck of a loss as far as I'm concerned if you went from $500,000 to 60,000, right? So the trading that I do, I look for long histories of good performance in the companies that I buy. I look for can they weather these financial storms? What's their history of how'd they come through the 2008 crisis? How'd they come through, the tech bubble in 2000? How'd they come through in 87? I look at what these things, what these companies do, and I pick only the best of the best, and then I use the strategies to create wealth from that, cash flow, if you will. Robert Kiyosaki, you're always talking about cash flow. Well, that's what I do, is I protect myself first, and then I go for the cash flow. And I've got a great system called Dividend Fireworks. It encompasses all those things. It encompasses the protection. It encompasses the great returns. Great, double digits to me is a great return. I think most people are starved for double digits. You know what I mean? And good times and bad. Like I said, here in Canada, you can get 2% on a GIC, which, the inflation rate, they won't tell you this, but the inflation rate's over 3%. So, you're losing money every day that you put money in there regardless. So, but that's the kind of trading I do right now. So.
Well, I think that goes to your background, probably also working in the field that you did, as an electrician and sports and everything. I mean, you were taught protection first. Make sure you've got the line protected. That you can cover your bases. You make sure that you double check and triple check. That whole thing with blue collar work is the old adage: measure twice and cut once, right? You make sure that you've got everything lined up the right way, and then you can go out there and learn to make money. And one thing that I got to remind everybody out there, it's the power of just simply compound interest and making money. It can replicate itself and multiply itself, and then it's a snowball effect. It's incredible if you can just start to make some money. Too often I get, and I remember I started this stuff when I was pretty young, Greg. I started trading when I was 25 years old. And I'll never forget sitting in a class down at the Union Pacific building in Salt Lake City. And you know me, I love telling history and stories, so I know all the landmarks there and everything. And this is a real historic building. It's an old railroad building, and we're in a classroom up on the 3rd floor. And there's an old guy up in front teaching the class. And here I am, the young guy in the back of the room, nodding my head, pretending like I'm, listening to everything, when reality is some of the stuff went in one ear, went out the other. I'll give you an example. He taught the strategy for covered calls. And when I was 25, I was like nodding my head, but my heart, I was like, nope, not interested. And there was a lot of reasons, but mostly it was just simple. I thought I should be more aggressive than that. The reality is, here's something I've learned as a mentor, a trader, is, guys, if you can protect yourself and then make money, any return is a good return. If you're active, you'll learn to make more as you go. Too often people try to pinpoint, well, I'm going to make 50% or 12% or 38%, or I want to get this. No, just learn how to protect yourself, become educated, then start cash flowing. And one thing that you've identified, Greg, and we've talked about this, is the power of selling options. Discuss that a little bit in your Dividend Fireworks, and also just the idea of cash flow in general. Why covered calls? Why dividend-paying stocks? You don't have to go into it in detail, but just in general, what's the philosophy there?
Well, first we look at the dividend-paying stocks, and the reason we do that is all the reasons I mentioned, protection, right? I've got a few stocks that I've got examples for that, in 2008, when everything crashed 40, 50%, it took several years for, your average, small caps to make back that money. Whereas, the high quality dividend paying stocks, the real dividend heroes, as I put it, it took maybe 4 months, 6 months, 8 months in some of these examples, and they were already back above what they'd lost. You know what I mean? So there's a certain level of protection there. Again, worst case scenario, even if the stock price falls and you're still collecting the dividend, if you've got these huge dividend payers that, with 30, 40, 50 years of increasing dividends, you know that money is going to come in. And then exactly what you said, Tim, is that money will compound and that it will snowball and it will build you, it will build you a portfolio, it will build you a nest egg over time. Well, once we have that in place, once we pick the right equities and we put all the protections in place, then we can sit there and we can say to somebody, okay, if you want my stock, I'll sell it to you, but I'm going to sell it to you at this price. Now, selling options is a way to take in credit. So you're renting your stock out, if you will. Think of it as a rental property. Instead of giving somebody a place to sleep, you're renting your stock out to them for a month, 6 weeks, whatever the case may be. Well, they're going to pay you some rent money for that, right? And now when you add that rent money that they're going to pay you, and you add that to your dividend payment, all of a sudden your returns are starting to look pretty sweet. You know what I mean? So selling credit, selling options, obviously you've got to get it, set up properly. But once you do, it's a very good source of income. It can be monthly income. It can be weekly income. It's almost unlimited, the possibilities of what you want to do with it. And like I said, the returns can be fantastic. And then when you take into consideration the compounding and the protection that you've already assured yourself, it's a way to sleep at night. My long-term portfolio, I've been using the Dividend Fireworks system even before it was called that. I've been using it for years, and I sleep well at night. Even though we had, a 10% correction in the last, couple of weeks or whatever, you know what I mean? I sleep well at night because I know that I've got all that protection in there, and I'm still collecting my rent every month. Boom, boom, boom. It just comes in, and it's a fantastic strategy for anybody to use. It can work in retirement accounts. It could, work in your normal accounts. There's lots of applications for those kind of strategies and that kind of system.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's what you're looking for, Ken.
Absolutely what I'm looking for. And I got to tell you, it's not often I find people that are great traders that I also think are great teachers. And I know that you're a natural teacher, and I just want to tell you that, my friend. I know that you're going to be a great teacher. I can hear the passion in your voice. One thing that I love about what we're doing at Tackle Trading is, and through this podcast and through all of it, it really is an expression of one thing I'm passionate about, and that is building teams. Greg, I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and tomorrow I'm going to get up in front of people and speak. And I'm going to relay a message, and a passionate message, because that's how I am. And I'm going to try to help people. I'm going to help them understand stuff. I'm going to help them learn about the markets, learn about the nature of the economy, learn about opportunities. And I would not be here, and I would not travel from my family if it wasn't for having a passion there. And I just want to remind you of that. As you go through and you build this out, don't ever forget that you're there to help people. And I don't think you ever would. You said something a minute ago that you're a people person. I saw that firsthand. I know that to be the case. And if you keep that passion and if you keep that attitude, you're going to be a great mentor, my friend.
Well, thanks, Tim. I really appreciate that. And, I appreciate all the help you've put out there for me. And like I said, I love this stuff. I live, eat, breathe this stuff because I think it's, I've worked hard, and I've seen people work hard all their life. And, I just like to see them succeed. You know what I mean? As much as I like to succeed, I like to see other people succeed more. That gives me a charge if I can help somebody get that leg up, you know what I mean? And I'll tell you, if you take control of your financial future, man, life starts to get awfully rosy. You know what I mean? The sun looks a little brighter, the birds sing a little louder, It's an amazing feeling, and that's why I'm in this business, and that's why I was fortunate to meet yourself and the other guys from Tackle Trading. It's an amazing community to be part of, and I'm super grateful.
Well, it's good to have you. And just by way of a quick announcement for everybody out there, and Phil, put this in the notes and the podcast wherever we post it, but Greg will be teaching actually over at Tackle Trading a Cash Flow Club event, which is Thursday, September 17th, 2015. And Greg is going to be there as one of the presenters and kind of talking a little bit about some systems and some ideas and fielding questions. Greg, I got to tell you, put a little pressure on you here. The cash flow event is one of our most popular events by our active traders. They love it. So I'm sure it's going to go off without a hitch, but they love that event. It only happens once a month. Yeah, the Cash Flow Club. All right, now, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. Greg, we'll have you back on. We'll talk more about this. Maybe you'll have to explain how rugby actually works. It just looks like an awesome sport to me. I never played, but I'd love to know some of the rules and whatnot. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us here on the podcast. Our guest again, Greg Holmes, guys, mentor trader out of Canada. He's got a deep history here with markets, and I think that it's a really compelling story. And one thing I want everybody to kind of think about out there is, how can I also have that kind of passion? What is it that's going to get me out of my rat race and get me controlling my financial future? One thing you said there at the end there, Greg, and I'll give you the last word here in a second, but one thing you said there at the end really kind of struck me. It's like, I wake up with confidence. I sleep. I sleep well at night, and I wake up with confidence even when the markets are tumultuous. And I think a lot of people out there would love to have that feeling. And there is an emotion involved with our money, and probably one of the scariest things is when you don't have the knowledge and you're not sure what to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I started out like everybody else. I was a complete newbie. I had no clue. I had a bad experience. I gave my money in control to somebody else, and it came back to bite me. And so it spurred me on to learn things and get mentors and take courses and read books. Like Rich Dad Poor Dad, first book I read when I became a financial advisor was that book, and it was absolutely brilliant. I can't say enough about getting educated, taking control. Control and leverage, two biggest concepts out there when it comes to really building yourself a life and a lifestyle. And that's what people want. They want to have security. Well, security comes from education and knowledge. And the best way to get that is to get out there and learn something, try it, take a course, read a book, meet somebody, get into a cash flow club, just get out there and meet as many people as you can that have like minds, and start learning and put yourself out there, spend some time, whatever you got to do, get out there, and your life will change for the better. You have my personal guarantee on that. So anyway, thanks, Tim, for having me on the podcast. This was exceptional. Always great to hang out with you and talk to the tackle trading folks as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Guys, you can find us on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe. Give us a rating if you like us. We'd love to hear that. It helps us on those iTunes rankings. I think we're building a pretty good audience here. Stitcher, Phil, I believe. Stitcher, TuneIn, pretty much any podcast app you can think out there. You can find the Trading Justice podcast. If you want to stream us, on the website, just go to tackletrading.com, click on podcast, and they'll all be right there. All right, we're out, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Ben.
Get in the game.
You've been listening to the Trading Justice podcast. If you've enjoyed yourself and think that the conversations and topics we've covered are important, help spread the word. Give us your feedback. 5 stars on iTunes, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. The Trading Justice podcast is proudly sponsored by TackleTrading.com. Get off the sidelines and get in the game.